Welcome to What Are You Noticing with Kish and Mitra. My co-host is Kish. She is a coach, relatefulness facilitator, and improv teacher.
My co-host is Mitra. He is a Dharma teacher, relatefulness facilitator, and coach. In this podcast, we're going to be covering a wide range of topics such as
Relationships,
insights from coaching and facilitation,
spirituality,
living a good life,
Asian American life,
and what's happening for us on our spiritual journeys. Without any further ado, we hope you enjoy the episode. Hey
Kish.
Everyone. Hey Mitra as well.
Hey us.
We haven't filmed an episode in a while, and I know we have a bunch of new listeners, which is super exciting.
Yeah. I was shocked to see someone said they listened to 3 episodes in a row, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to I feel resistance to that. Today we were basically thinking there's some topics that we've already been chatting about and thinking about, but we were thinking of just having it be a more chatty episode today.
I was actually just thinking about how I did a coaching session this morning with someone, and I felt a lot more free afterwards, and I did a bunch of short writings, and it's funny how much better I can feel after a session and how much it can open things up for me, which it almost feels like they're paying me, but I'm also getting a lot of benefit from it most of the time.
You feel happy about that?
I feel happy, a little bit mystified. I think slightly guilty or something. Yeah, I think I'm still working off the connection that work ought to be draining or something, or How's your post session experience?
I felt really good after a session I had yesterday. I've been kind of working through a lot of personal stuff, a lot of paranoia and fear about fear that I think is related to just what's happening in my life, but then also probably working through stuff from my parents and my grandparents, maybe even longer than that. And after the session yesterday, I think it's probably was kind of my version of what you described. I just felt really good. It was oh yeah, this is not that a job is who you are, but it just felt like this is who I am and this is what I do, and it's a niche that I can be in. There's room for improvement as well. But I think that's also part of occupying that niche, is occupying those mental patterns of, doing the thing, and then how do I want to improve at it.
What about paranoia and fear about fear made me... There was a relateful flow last week that I was in. That's co-leading, and it was really nice because the other facilitator really embodied... It was really in some deep place of fear and surrender and safety, and it was really beautiful. It's something trusting that my experience really matters regardless of what anything else says, and how hard it is to for some of us to really be in that or stay in that, and it's kind of a gift for me because I think that's a place that I'm really familiar with, but often feel it's not something to bring into the group setting, maybe if one friend or by myself, or if a teacher, but it almost feels like I might transmit paranoia or transmit fear to a group of people or something. I don't want to pollute other people's experience. But the way we explored it and the way she held it actually was really beautiful. And
Yeah. This reminds me of something that I've been thinking about since Relateful Camp, which is, I'll just put it this way, like there's, if you look at things in terms of masculine versus feminine, there's like masculine leadership or facilitation, and there's like more feminine leadership or facilitation. And one of the things that I've been really critical of myself for, which, you know, I'm seeing now, is I think I have a very feminine facilitation style, and, you know, there's ways I want to grow in that too, but I was being really hard on myself for not having that masculine thing. And I think part of what I associate with more feminine leadership is the ability to just like show up from that place of fear or sadness or tenderness. And of course, men can embody that as well. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, hearing what you described about the other facilitator in your session, it makes me think about how I really appreciate it when other people bring that. But then when I bring my fear or when I bring my sadness or something, I don't see that as powerful or like a leadership move, really.
Yeah, and so often when I'm in that, I can't. And it's like, I fight so many people on this point, because I think of all the times when like I'm at the edge, where I'm like exploring a new territory or really facing something. I really don't know what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm so annoyed at people that like read books, or they try to tell you like, no, it is safe, or they're like, this is a safe space, and you're like, that's not helpful. And so there's like a leap of faith and courage and faith that's like, until I get to the other side, I genuinely don't know whether or not it's okay. And
Yeah.
build experience and like trust and faith and eventually like actual insight. But while I'm in it, it's like, it's really unknown.
Yeah, it just feels like I'm here and the next place is like somewhere totally different that I don't know. And it requires a leap of faith.
Yeah, it also comes up like when people are going through something really hard, like a breakup, or like their family member died or something. It's like, how do I respond to this? Because I can't say like it's going to get better. Like, that doesn't sound right. Time will heal it. Like, that's not a good thing to say. And actually, this came up with someone recently, and one of their pets, the long-term pet, was dying. And I was like, I want to send something to them so that they know that I'm thinking about them. But I was like, what do you write that's like not stupid?
Yeah, I have that same kind of thing. Like when people are sick, I'm like, what do I say? I hope you feel better.
Right.
I'm sorry you're sick.
Right.
Stay strong.
Yeah.
I'm
Right,
praying for
exactly.
you.
What did I send? Actually, let me see what I actually. Oh, I think I wrote, wishing you a lot of care and gentleness today, and everything you're going through.
Yeah.
I want to like reclaim the word pray, but I don't know how that's gonna land for a lot of people. You know, I'm gonna pray for you or something. Or...
Prayer hands emoji.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also started. I like blessed someone. Someone was in Asheville and they were leaving, and I wanted to send them off somehow, and so I gave them like a blessing, and it felt really good. I was like, rather than just feel like, I hope your travels go well or whatever. It's like an actual blessing, you know. Yeah.
There's something that you like about leaning into that. I mean, you used the word mystical earlier, I think.
Yeah. I'm taking another coaching level 2 course right now, and they talk about like content versus contact. And they're like, a lot of times we want contact, but we actually just are giving off content. And
Mm.
and so there's a way in which, like, when I'm trying to say something to this person, whether it's like their loved one died or they're leaving town, I want them to feel the contact that I'm with them, or that I love them, or that I'm wishing them well. And I feel like it's so much like polite society. It's sometimes like it's hard to convey that. I don't know. I really want to. I guess it's sometimes easy actually. Like I was just talking to my roommate this morning about sometimes I meet a new person and it's like almost a spell. Ansui did this to me actually, where she was just like, I think like the third or fourth time at Maple, she like cornered me and she was like, "I want to be your friend," and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'd love to be your friend."
Aw.
And so sometimes I'll meet someone, I'll be like, "There's a part of me that really wants to be your friend and doesn't know if that's going to happen, but it really wants that to happen." And
Yeah.
like sincere,
There's
maybe.
something that seems like impolite or rude about being too close to what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. At least in some circles.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel the truth of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't always say what you mean.
Mm-hmm. But it kind of like it can be transmitted, and so sometimes the words aren't right, but the energy is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think of so many relateful sessions where like people kind of say janky words, and then people get like offended by the word choice. But then for those of us that are good at it, we can be like, "Oh no, I can see what you're really trying to, you know." You can like do translations, or like, I think what he's trying to say is he wants to feel you more, and it's hurt. It hurts when you throw up defenses or something.
That's another aspect of being at an edge.
Hmm.
You don't, yeah, like something that was happening with my fear and paranoia. Mostly I've been in relation to Harris, my partner, as it's come up.
Hmm.
And I remember one time I was just telling him I hear these noises
Hmm.
in relation to other noises in my mind.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?"
Hmm.
But it's like when you're at this edge, you kind of have to make up new language for yourself, or you have to like even realize that there's salient things that you could be sharing with other people. I think
Hmm.
that's why it can come out like clumsy or janky initially,
Hmm.
or even for a while.
Yeah. It's really nice to have other people that can not take you literally and kind of see that, oh, it's like a baby bird trying to do a new move here. My mind's
Yeah.
also pinging on like, do you see a distinction between your therapists versus the other coaches and friends and mentors
I
you
was
have?
thinking about this. I was thinking about this for a couple reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One is because in the facilitator session yesterday, the Austin facilitator session, someone brought something up,
Mm.
and this other person who was the first person's coach
Mm.
was kind of like, "Oh, why didn't you share that with, like, why didn't I know this about you?" And the first person was saying how he like kind of felt bad about not going to the second person with this, and then
Mm.
the second person was like, "Oh, it's just because I care about you, not because some
Right.
things are for
Right.
therapy and some things
Totally.
are for coaching."
Mm.
um, But, the more that I do therapy now, I feel like I found a really amazing therapist, and I'm just like, wow, I want to know more about this and be able to do what she does. But it's different. Like, I go to my therapist, and there are these certain expectations that I have. And I think it's also nice, like therapy and coaching, because it's usually someone who you have very specific interactions with. Like, I'm not going to see my therapist outside of it. But then with my partner, he's with me when it's really bad. And that's an ongoing relationship. And he doesn't have tools, like, he's not trained. What he can do is just love me and try to understand me and be there for me. Same with friends. It just so happens, I guess, that a lot of my friends have similar experiences, either from meditation or through their own explorations. They can relate to me more. And I think my partner it's just all different facets. Yeah. And I guess my therapist, there's also more of a historical bent to it, even though it's very present oriented. There's also a piece of how does it make sense that this is about your grandma or about your parents or something.
What's something you really like? Is there a move she does, or is there a modality that she practices that we're oh, this is really good, or I want to learn more about this?
The reason why I went to see her is because I wanted to find someone who practices coherence therapy, which it's basically about memory reconsolidation. So I started reading the book about it, and the theory behind it is that certain things can activate different beliefs that you have. And when those beliefs are activated, then it's in a labile state. So there's a possibility for it to change. And so if you're in that state, you can introduce a new belief or new something, and then theoretically this will just actually effortlessly just override that. You're smiling. Why are you smiling?
I was just thinking psychedelics are really good for this too. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the neuroplasticity. But I think also psychedelics are really risky because there's less control. Unless you're I think what you do is really amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely more variance. Yeah, there's more variance.
Yeah. Part of the experience that I had is I didn't take a psychedelic drug. I took something just from the shop near my old apartment, and it was Blue Lotus, CBD, and CBN. I thought it would help me relax and stuff, but it actually really triggered this almost bad trip experience. It was yeah, it was really scary. And talking to my therapist about it afterwards, she said, basically my interpretation is it just rewired my brain in a harmful way. So I think that's why I'm also wary of certain uses of psychedelics.
Yeah, it's definitely very powerful. So it's yeah, it definitely has both potential benefits and also potential risks. It's so interesting because I've had the same therapist for I don't know now 6 years or something, and I've only had 2 therapists in my whole life. And I started getting coaching from some friends in the Alethea method that I'm doing, and I actually found it in some ways to be a lot more effective than therapy. And so I was questioning, should I keep seeing my therapist, especially as I had to transition to cash? And so like kind of what you said, I think like one of the benefits is I know he is not going to show up in other areas of my life, and so I can really talk about anything with him. There's often other people in my life that I'm struggling with or working out some relational patterns with,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's really helpful. And there's also a sense of, I don't know, my current thinking, and obviously all coaches and all therapists are unique and different, but like as a generic thing, I find that most therapists, I think, are more safety oriented and kind of scared to take certain risks. And it's like good because like I have like a very positive, safe relationship to my therapist, and I don't ever have to like worry about him or something. But I also
Mm-hmm.
feel like therapists kind of play safe and aren't going to take as many risks, and it's like more of like a long term, really secure relationship. And then the coaches, I feel like, are more willing and likely to challenge me and kind of like hold my feet to the fire and have more almost intervention, short term transformations.
Mm.
But I might not work with the same coach for very long. So,
I think for me also, as you're saying it,
mm-hmm.
it makes me think about how part of the way that I relate to coaching is also just teaching people certain skills, like introspection skills or ways of relating to their experience. Whereas I think with my experience with therapy, it's more like skills to regulate yourself
Mm-hmm.
or skills to help you titrate. It's more like aimed towards regulation, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about some of the clients I've worked with, and some of them have been more on sort of learning those kind of coping skills. But then often it kind of also blossoms more into like almost like a circle, like a flow circle or something, where it's like, it's really like, how is it to share, kind of almost like getting live reps in of like, how is it to be with certain experiences or be with me with certain things rather than trying to understand or get insight. Or I connect a lot of dots when I'm working in therapy of like, oh, this is why I'm like this, and this connects to this. Whereas I feel like in the coaching, it's much more like the live experience of like, oh, I'm scared to say what I really want. And it's not 100% guaranteed the coach is always going to be like this neutral positive thing or something. So, it's like
Mm-hmm.
a skill training, skill practice, relational
Mm-hmm.
practice. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, what if it's time for you to end your relationship with your therapist? Because part of what has been happening for me is like I transitioned out of, like, I just had my last session with my former therapist who I had been seeing for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working with this new therapist, and I feel like, I mean, there's just like new things that can come up with different people, but then also
Mm-hmm.
part of how I've been thinking about it is that each practitioner, including therapists, they have a certain transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've received that transmission to the extent that you can, it kind of makes sense to move on to someone else if you,
Mm-hmm.
want to keep
Mm-hmm.
growing at a certain rate
Mm-hmm.
or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this actually came up when I did I was teaching a retreat in California, and so I was like sitting maybe like 8 or 12 hours a day as well, and I was having a lot of insights the first few days about my life before things settled down and I could just meditate. But one of the things that really came up strongly was the sense of like, I want more sort of like feminine based supports in my life. And like, I've had two male therapists. I've had like predominantly male meditation teachers, almost all male bosses. And
Mm.
there's a way in which I think I've mapped on a lot of relationships to like my older brother. That's like a model or an
Mm.
archetype that feels really comfortable and like safe, and like my brother kind of raised me to some extent, and I had some level of care and attunement from him growing up. And then feeling really missed by my mother because I think she was just like too scared and busy and worried and stuff and anxious. And there's a way in which I think part of my system has a hard time trusting being supported by the feminine presence or just like women in general. And I have a couple examples. Like it's not zero, but it's definitely lopsided more on the male side. And so it kind of entered my mind of like, oh, I want to find a female therapist or female body worker, or just like get more of my female friends to help me. I asked actually one of our mutual friends, I won't say the name right now, but I have a mutual friend that's going to do a MDMA session with me in June. So that'll be nice. But yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, everyone has their transmission, and there's also like different parts of me that I think maybe needs different things.
Yeah. I relate a lot to that. Some people came to visit me in Austin. They were attending a Dharma Gates retreat. I forgot the teacher's name, but it's like this amazing female
Beth Upton?
teacher. Yeah. Beth Upton. And they were telling me about her and how she has like a wonderful teaching style. And at the Relateful Camp, I was seeing the stuff that I mentioned previously about kind of like my own internalized sexism. And part of what I was thinking as well was, oh, how would it be different if I had role models, like female role models in my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give any details because I think it's like confidential, but I think in more generic strokes, Lost led this really powerful circle at Relateful Camp that was like the female
Ladies first.
ladies first, yeah. And I was so surprised at how deep and nuanced and also like how much there was so much like complexity of, I mean, it's not actually complex, but it was kind of like different layers and different dimensionalities of, yeah, like of all the relationships and like feeling trust of women, not feeling not trust of women, feeling trust of men, feeling not trust of men.
Feeling not trust with yourself as a woman.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. The structure of the session, just for the listeners, was initially we're divided into small groups, all male or all female groups, and we circled amongst ourselves. And then we got back together in a big circle, like every other, basically. Numbers almost perfectly worked out. And then for the first 20 minutes or something, only ladies could speak. And then after that point, everyone could speak, but it was still mostly ladies speaking, actually. Super powerful.
I'm also thinking to the last like closing circle where like almost everyone was in, and I think at one point you or I looked at each other and this question of like Europe versus America was coming up, and we're like one of the only Asian people here, and that feels like one of those edges where it's like I don't know if it's okay to bring up the Asian question in a circle that's predominantly like usually white, but just not Asian for sure. And it's been something I've been trying to claim and own more. Like people ask me, is there anything you don't like about Asheville? And I think before I would like kind of just not mention it, but more and more I'm like, well, the lack of Asian people is hard to swallow, and feeling like if I stay here long term, a part of me is just gonna have to like be okay with that is hard. And and there's a weird thing where like I don't want to put myself in a victim mentality, but there is discernment or like true seeing of like there is something about growing up always being, usually for me, the only Asian kid in the class and often getting bullied. Everyone gets bullied for a lot of reasons, but for me, I think being small and Asian made me stand out. And so there is like that kind of like paranoia or fear that like some degree I think I got from my mom, and some degree I think I just got from always being self-conscious of like, oh, I'm sticking out and I'm highlighted and targeted for this.
Yeah. I think there is discernment there for sure.
Yeah. just gonna say like the sense of like bringing that up to my parts can seem like, oh, I'm gonna get bullied for bringing up the thing that no one wants to hear. And then like I really don't know because like there's a part of me that can intellectualize like, no, I think these people care about you, or we're like mature enough to bring this up and people won't take it personally or something. Or I might get really angry and like project hard against people that don't deserve it, and it's like disproportional to what's happening.
It's hard when you're in that uncertainty because there's so many reasons not to tell people, like probably based on your experiences as well. But one thing I was reflecting on today due to therapy was in the past, in a previous relationship, I had a similar kind of experience with the paranoia and fear. And at that point, I felt like I couldn't share it with my partner at the time. And that was really hard. But now there's still fear coming up. I'm like, am I going to be too much? Is he going to, want to leave or something? But I feel like it builds a lot of trust to be able to share that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah, I just had a call yesterday with someone at Maple, and they were going for a really tough time, and they kind of like did something that they were ashamed of, and was like it wasn't good for the community for me to do this. And initially, they were kind of like telling me, like, Mitra, you never really did anything that was disruptive or bad for the community, and you're such a good role model or something. And I was like, I don't know. It's true. It's true that I didn't do. Well, A, I could definitely think of things I did that I think were bad somewhat for the community. And B, I think I have some pride and confidence in that I do a pretty good job at like holding myself and not spilling over into harming others badly or something. But also equally, I feel like a great advantage of being in a good relationship or like being at Maple or having a good community or teacher is like getting worn down to those places that I'm defending myself, and then being able to take those trust falls and find out what's on the other side. And I was telling this person, I was like, I wonder if I would have stayed longer if I actually had felt confidence or faith to actually be really messy and see if it would work out, rather than the stakes feeling too high for me to like, it's not okay for me to do that and I'm gonna have to leave now. Not the only reason I left, but it's just like just another way in which it's so funny how it's like something that looks bad and actually kind of is bad in certain ways is also like a growing container or like a developmental opportunity.
And I think I'm imagining like if I were in the other person's side that you had the call with, and even from my perspective, like it can be really helpful. Obviously there's like some repercussions you don't want to have, but I don't think it's healthy to put anyone on a pedestal. Like just to see that, oh, this person like made a mistake or like did something that wasn't, this person I really respect did something that wasn't that great for me, but see how they're interested in repairing things or like growing from it or something. That just feels so much more possible to me than this sense that I have to become this person who's not messy and whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like I'm thinking of either relationships or circles where like we're like find the perfect relationship that never gets into fights or never has disagreements. It's usually a recipe for disaster. Or a lot of times there's like the green meme circles that sometimes be like, why is everyone kind of getting angry, or like why is there like dissidence in the circle? Like why we should just all be like happy and like helpful. And we're like, no, we're trying to find a third thing past superficial harmony or something.
Yeah, those of us who are good at circling.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's a callback.
should own it more. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the adults in the room.
I'm thinking about what you were saying with being Asian too. Like, I think because I wanted so much to not be like my parents. I don't know if your parents are like this, but I think this meme about Asian parents is that they're only really happy eating at the kinds of restaurants that like they grew up with.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I was younger, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be like that, like always wanting to eat Chinese food and stuff. And Harris has remarked a number of times that he's surprised by how we never eat Chinese. Like, I never go to eat Chinese food for the most part. But like, I also had this experience when I was in Croatia for a month of really like missing Asian food, not just Chinese food, but like really missing Asian food. And I would go to this supermarket in Split, and they had like sriracha and kimchi, and it was just ramen. It was just like I needed that.
Yeah, I often think about there's like a third synthesis or something. I wish there was a good vocabulary for this, but it's like here in Asheville, we went to a Christian church that one of our friends converted to, and it was really interesting to see, like, for those of us that were raised Christian, there's a part of us that feels deeply at home and like feels really good to kind of reclaim parts of that. But then there's also like the teenager, adolescent, like rebellion, individuation, critical thinking side that's just like, why'd the pastor have to say it that way? Like, that's stupid. Like, this is why I didn't go to church. And I feel the same thing. It's like kind of true of everything, but I feel that also with like my parents and my background of like, I do feel genuinely, I think, most at ease with like other Asian people and doing things kind of like the Asian way that I grew up. But then there's such a strong part of me that's like trying to learn beyond that and also doesn't like that. And then ideally I'd find the third way that's like I'm not attached and I'm not reacting to that at all. Like, I'm actually present and like with things right now. But yeah, it's such a challenge to how do you work through that?
Yeah.
This is also a side tangent, but I saw, OpenAI released everything has to talk about AI now. But OpenAI released a new thing that can. I don't think it's live yet, but they can do basically like live translations. And a really sore point for me has been like the sense of like having a language barrier with my parents. And then I saw this demo where it was basically very accurately within like milliseconds live translating. And I was like, oh, I might not have this reason or excuse or fear in like a year or something. And that'd be really
Oh my God.
weird, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me about Mother's Day was recently. And I was already planning on texting my mom, but Harris was also telling me, hey, it's Mother's Day, you should. He wants me to have a good relationship with my parents, which I want as well. And so I texted her, and then she responded, and from her response it was pretty clear that she expected me to call her, which I just didn't do. It just like totally like have been trying to ignore that text.
Yeah, my mind went to like, I wonder if there's like relationship body workers or something.
There's family constellations, which someone recommended I try.
I almost wish there was like, if I believed in like more woo things, so like hiring someone to like energetically massage the relationship.
I feel like we know so much, but I don't know what that would be. Like, could like a Reiki master do that? Or
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I have that version when I call my mom after a long time. The first thing she always says, and it's sad because I can see the ways that I've adopted this in my own speech patterns and relationships, is she'll kind of like guilt trip me. She'll be like, "Oh, it's so good to hear you. It's been so long. I started thinking I don't have a son anymore." I'm just like,
oh,
and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna, and yeah, I don't know. When I get angry, it like feels like I don't get stuck, but then that doesn't always work, and so then I swallow it, but then it doesn't feel good to swallow it, and so I'm just like, all right. When I
yeah.
translate, she really misses talking to me, and she loves me. I think do a lot of translation.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part about just translating. Like, even if there was an AI that could translate,
Mm-hmm.
part of what it can't translate is like I don't know how it would do this. There's like just this cultural
Mm-hmm.
difference. Like
Mm-hmm.
in Chinese, there's this phrase that my mom would use
Hmm.
towards me frequently, which is bin so bin jiao, which
Hmm.
translates to stupid hands, stupid feet. which translates to like clumsy or not dexterous.
Mm.
But having the bilingual context,
Mm-hmm.
the translation is just different. There's
Right.
this additional connotation that's perhaps not there if you're a
Mm-hmm.
native speaker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that's like what you were saying with the guilt tripping. Like I think that's just a really common phrase for Korean people.
Totally.
Like I thought I didn't have a son anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's making me also appreciate. I forgot what I was gonna say, but it was making me appreciate the positive things I also got from them, and how hard that is to translate. But now I'm trying to remember what it was, and I can't remember what I'm appreciating. Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. It was there's something I really do appreciate that it's like I don't know if your parents are like this, but I feel like in Korean culture, at least the immigrant culture that I grew up in, there was a certain like bluntness and matter of factness of things. They'd be like, "Did you see so and so? They got really fat," and yeah, it's just like, yeah. Or I mean, there's a way in which like it's insensitive and not helpful, but there's also a way in which it's like refreshing and honest. They'd be like, you know, like, can we just say the thing
Yeah.
that we think rather than dancing around it?
Yeah, I don't like that.
You don't like it?
They do have that, but I don't like that because I feel like, I mean, first of all, it is important in like 1982. That's the name of the book, right? Or is it 1984?
Might be 84.
1984. Like, it's good to just be able to like think what you want to think instead of needing to police your thoughts. But on the other hand, I think if you go down the same groove all the time, like this person's fat, this person has bad skin,
Totally.
then you just wear that groove in. You don't open yourself to new like pathways.
Totally. Yeah, that's true. I think it was a failure case on both ends, and yeah, the way that like reifies things isn't great. Yeah.
I gotta get going soon.
Cool.
Any last thoughts?
Let's be honest and sensitive.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's keep growing and healing and seeing all incremental progress as progress.
Nice. Love it. All right.
Okay.
See you,
Thanks,
Kish.
Mitra. See ya.
Thanks for listening. This podcast was executive produced by Mitra and Kish, was written by Kish and Mitra, and performed by Mitra and Kish. Like, review, and subscribe wherever your podcasts are found.
For more information about Mitra, you can visit his website at peterxpark.com And for more information about me, you can visit my website at kishandyou.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.